Welcome back to Apex Survival Gear, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about something that affects millions of people worldwide, and that is hurricanes. For hurricane preparation, you need to get at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, absolute minimum. Then you're going to need something to spice up that water a little bit, like some instant coffee or some Tang, or maybe some Yoo-Hoos and milks that don't need to be refrigerated. And for food, you need to keep in mind that you might be cooking for a long period of time without electricity. So keeping that in mind, you want things like instant soups or canned meats, things you can eat straight out of the can, like tuna, or something that needs to be slightly heated. Things like peanut butter and your nuts, healthy little snacks, your dried fruit. Then we have to come into what you're going to eat out of. The easiest thing is definitely paper plates and bowls and plastic utensils. You want to avoid as much mess as possible for a hurricane. It's possible you won't have running water, so to save it, it is best to get paper plates. I want to stress that. It is so easy to deal with paper plates and just throw them in the garbage or burn them in the backyard after a disaster than dealing with a bunch of dishes. Keeping that in mind, it's good to get some really tough garbage bags. You don't know how long garbage is going to be piling up. If you could go a few weeks without services, get the tough stuff. Then, because you might be cooking inside using things like a Sterno heat can, or you might have a propane stove outside or a grill. Don't use a grill inside, by the way. That's stupid. People do that. You want to have your fire retardants. You want to have your fire extinguishers. Get a few of these around the house, because you might be burning candles as well. Put them in strategic locations, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the bedrooms, to instantly put a fire out if you need to. If you're burning candles in the house, I can't stress fire extinguishers enough. The last thing you want to do is have your house survive a hurricane and then you burn it down. Then, first aid. First aid is an absolute must. This is one of the most important things. When you go to the store, pick up your first aid and your water bottles. You cannot have enough water bottles for a disaster. These things go quick, especially water. You don't want to be without your first aid, basic medicine. And also, your matches. You got to have your matches and your lighters, things to start your fires. And something easy also to deal with the food is your MREs and your freeze-dried stuff. Freeze-dried is so good and easy. All you need to do is heat up water, pour it in, and you can have a whole meal for your entire family. Something else, thermometers. For your refrigerator and your freezers, this is one of the most important things to have. If the power goes out, and it goes out for too long, you can actually keep your stuff in your freezer safe for a while, depending on how stuffed full it is. But once it goes down to a certain temperature and things start thawing out, it's done. I think it's 40 degrees for like 4 hours. That's when you need to start really throwing some stuff away. Along with having a thermometer in your freezer and your fridge, it would behoove you to take a picture of the inside of your freezer and refrigerator during the storm in case the power goes out. So in case you do want to go in and grab something really quick, you can look at the camera and go in and grab it. You don't have to like search through the fridge with no power. Now that's going to make it get hot quick. When I was younger, I made a mistake. We were in the middle of a hurricane, the power went out, and I was doing dishes. I put food down the garbage disposal and clogged up the sink like 1 hour into a power outage. Everyone in the house hated me. To avoid having people hate you, go ahead and get yourself a sink screen. This will save you a lot of headache later down the road. And also, in case the water goes out during a hurricane, you can have something like this, a little hand washing station. This one holds like 3.5 gallons of water, and it works great. This is an absolute luxury during a hurricane. Hurricane preparation for your bathroom is very important and super simple. What you're going to want to do first is give your bathroom a good clean. Number one, it's kind of self-evident that you need a clean bathroom. It's just disgusting when you don't. then it's really hard to clean your bathroom when you don't have electricity, and especially you don't have running water. And you're also going to need to stock up on your basic toiletries, including a little candle. You really don't need much to light up a bathroom, so this is going to work just fine. Then what is most important, the most important thing, is to have your bathtub full of water. This is going to hold a ton of water. You use this water for cooking, cleaning, washing, and then most importantly, this is going to be used to produce the greatest sound in all of mankind. This is the sound of indoor plumbing. Repairing your electronics for a hurricane is also an important step. You want to make sure, if it can be charged, to have it fully charged before the hurricane starts. That includes computers, power banks for your cell phones and other devices, and really most importantly is going to be your power tools. You could be without power for a very long time, and being without your power tools is such an inconvenience. It's cool to work with non-electric power tools sometimes, but it gets old and tiring really quick if you have to use them for a long period of time. Having these constantly charged, always charged, is a must. And double checking them before a hurricane, definitely. Also, your cell phones, I always keep my phone on the charger during the hurricane. While the storm is happening, my phone is at a constant state of charging. But if the power does go out for a longer period of time, having things like this is going to be really handy. This is a primitive vacuum cleaner, and it works really well at picking up little cat hair and dust off the carpet and hardwood floor. Having these tools at your disposal is a must-have, not just for a hurricane, but really any disaster. Being able to clean your home is such a morale booster. So you decided to stay home for the hurricane and ride it out. And for the most part, that's going to be fine. Most people are going to get away with that and be totally fine. Some people aren't going to be fine, especially people who live on the coast or in a low-lying area. Caribbean people, Florida, the Gulf Coast, it can get pretty bad. And every year we see people get flooded. Their homes are totally destroyed, totally flooded. I recently heard a story of this woman I know. Her father he lives in Florida, and he lived through a hurricane. He's 80 years old and had to get outside in his little John boat and tie it up next to the roof of his house. And he was out there for about 8 or 12 hours, and he got beaten bad. He was beaten and bruised, but he lived. So some people are going to get the worst of it. And because of that old man getting beat up and the example of other people, I thought it'd be a good idea to recommend you keep a life jacket or a personal flotation device in your house. Especially if you're not used to hurricanes, then you might think it's a little bit overkill until it's not. Until you're like, wow, my feet are wet inside my second-story building. It's getting pretty serious, and you're going to be glad you had it. Along with that, you want to think about your pets. You don't want to crate an animal in a flood, because if something happens and they get away from you, your animal's going to drown inside of a cage. It's best to give them a fighting chance. Even if they do run off and you never see them again, it's better than having them drown in a cage, right? So I got this for this guy right here. And also, if you are doing that, don't worry about your money, your guns, your jewelry, your paperwork, anything. I'd say get your people, get your PFD. Maybe if you want, get one of these little waterproof boxes, put your phone in it for like security reasons, and then get out. Don't weigh yourselves down with a whole bunch of stuff. If you can have a bottle of water, that's great, but get out. Your safety is the priority, and getting to safety afterwards is going to be the priority. That's why I say bring your cell phone if you can. Before a hurricane comes, you really want to make sure, go ahead and get all the random bits of debris out of your yard, sticks, all that nonsense. Don't want any flying stuff around. Also, you want to make sure that anything that can blow away is properly secured to the ground, because that's just going to be a big object flying around during a hurricane. You also want to make sure your grass is cut. The last thing you want to deal with is ankle-high grass and a bunch of junk in the yard making a mess. It's just not going to work. So, let's say the storm's really bad, it's headed right for you, and you don't feel safe. You think your best bet's to evacuate. And oftentimes that can be the best situation for many people. And a lot of people regret not evacuating their homes. When you evacuate, you need to decide what you need to prepare for. And that kind of depends on what kind of home you live in. Do you have an apartment, a house, a slab house, a trailer? So if you have a slab house, that means you're basically ground level. And the chances of you flooding are pretty big. So you need to get something like sandbags to really divert that water away from your openings. If you have a trailer, that's another thing. Your home can tip over in the wind. So you would need to actually cement in like metal rods and ratchet strap your entire house down to help it stay down. Also, hurricane stays underneath your house and trailer can help you out a lot. Then if you have a house that's off the ground, personally my house is like 4 feet off the ground. That's a lot of coverage for me. I can be surrounded by water 4 feet deep before I even see water inside my house. That's pretty convenient. And those are things you need to think about before you start evacuating. Now, when you do evacuate, you're going to need certain items. You'll want to bring all your jewelry, your bullion, cash, prescription medicines if you have any. Then all your paperwork, deeds, titles, passports, IDs, insurance information. Any little thing that you think would be a hassle to replace, bring it. Including paperwork for your pets. Because you are evacuating, hopefully, with your animals, and this could be important later on. And then anything that you might need for work, like laptops, electronics, any little thing like that you're going to need to bring. Also, bring your firearms as well. And you need to remember that when you leave your house, you might not be coming home. You could leave and never come back. All your home and all your valuables are sucked out in the ocean. So what you bring with you, that could be it. You could be starting your life over from scratch with the items that you can fit inside of your vehicle. And that really needs to be in the back of your mind when you're leaving home. So as stated before, your home might flood, especially if you live in a slab house and you live close to the ocean, a river, a low-lying area, whatever. You need to prepare to have your home flooded with salt water. So if you have any electronics, anything valuable that can't survive getting flooded, it's simple. Take it and put it on a high shelf. Even if your home gets flooded, there's a good chance that your entire home won't get flooded. Flood water could come up to your waist. Everything waist down gets destroyed. Waist up survives. I've seen it happen before. Your stuff can be saved just from putting it up. Where I work, we get flooded sometimes with crazy high tides, and literally all we do is get our electronics, freezers and things, stick giant boards underneath them, and we'll elevate them 3 feet off the ground. Totally fine. Also, something you need to consider is hiding valuable items. So let's say you do evacuate, and then half the town's gone in another state or more inland, and you have a bunch of criminals running around ransacking houses. It happens. Some places try to prevent that by putting in a curfew and having law enforcement drive around and shooing away everybody. So you need to prepare for that as well. If you can, hide the stuff that you can't take with you. If you have a large firearm collection, I highly recommend you hide that. If you have a safe that can be hidden, hide it. If you can add an extra bolt in it, add an extra bolt in it. Do what you can to try to save your stuff from looters. When it comes to hiding items from looters, there's another set of looters that you have to consider, and that is your local police department. During Hurricane Katrina, the New Orleans Police Department, led by Eddie Compass. He said something like, "We will come after your firearms, only law enforcement will be armed." Some kind of quote like that. And he stood by that. He went around to businesses and people's homes and took their firearms without any due process at all. He took it upon himself, as chief of police, to disarm the population. And some of those people actually ended up getting robbed and having their stores ransacked by looters and criminals. And you need to consider that during a disaster, that law enforcement might not be respecting your human rights or civil liberties. I like to think the best of law enforcement, but let's not be naive. There are absolute dictators and tyrants out there who will take it upon themselves to break the law and take away your civil liberties without any loss of sleep at night. They will guiltlessly steal from the population. And to prevent that, I would say the best thing to do is definitely not fight the police, because 99.999 times out of 100, they're going to win that fight. Save the fight for the courts. That's always for the best. Hide the firearms. If you have one on you, you should have one on you during a disaster, and they take that gun, have another one hidden away. There's nothing wrong with that. Because a federal judge eventually told Eddie Compass that he can't do that. I don't know if Eddie Compass ever got in trouble for that. I hope he did. But it's not illegal to have a gun during a disaster, regardless who says otherwise. So evacuating is basically just planning for a road trip from a certain perspective. So what you need to do is just make sure your vehicle is serviceable. Take it in for a tune-up, oil change, change the cabin filters, oil filters, get the tires inspected, maybe get new tires, make sure your spare tire is fully inflated, ready to go, make sure everything's working. Then also have your destination in mind. You want to have a location to go to. You don't just want to be traveling away. That's not a very good plan. If you can have a hotel reservation, that's awesome. During a hurricane, hotels, they fill up quick. You probably won't be able to get one unless you really pre-plan, which is always for the best. The only alternative to that is to travel so far inland that, there's not many people there, which could be traveling like 1,000 miles. Or you could go camping. Or if you have a camper, that's even better. You can pull up in any Walmart parking lot and just set up right there. But a lot of people are unfortunately going to be sleeping in their car or a tent, which is fun for like a night or two, not that long. So make sure your camping equipment is still serviceable if you haven't used it in a while. Set it up in the backyard. Leave it out for a rainstorm. Make sure everything stays dry. Stay a night in it. Make sure everything's working. Also, traveling for long periods of time, make sure the driver has plenty of caffeine. Keep your car always topped off on gasoline. That is so important. Every time during a hurricane, every single hurricane, the gas stations are packed full of people filling up their gas tanks, filling up spare gas cans, which you should do too. Always keep that thing topped off. That is so important, and gas becomes very scarce during a hurricane. I can't stress that enough. If you just moved to Florida and there's a hurricane coming, top off your gas tank and keep it topped off. So I can't stress that enough. Along with that is, basic stuff for dealing with kids. Give them the toys, iPad, tablet, whatever. Keep them entertained. Also for firearms, obviously you want to travel with your firearm. I just isn't legal advice from my lawyer, but I'm pretty sure an SKS with the bayonet cut off is legal in all 50 states, except for I think the state of New York, because you need special permits to just have a gun in the state of New York. It's absolutely ridiculous. Pump shotguns, pistols that can hold under 10 rounds are legal in all 50 states. So when traveling, beware of that, because you could just cross a border and then all of a sudden your legal gun is now illegal, especially places like New York, Connecticut, California. Some of those places are barely America anymore. Sorry if you live there. Hope it gets better one day. It'd be a real shame to evacuate from a hurricane and then get arrested for, you know, just having a gun in your car. It's absolutely ridiculous what these states do sometimes. Evacuating can be a real tedious process. Sometimes the state can actually help out a lot. If you're having millions of people leaving at one time, sometimes they could do what's called a lane reversal, where all lanes lead out, no lanes lead in. It's quite a process, and if done right, you can actually move millions of people in no time at all. It's really convenient during a disaster. I know we've done it before and seen it done. It's pretty impressive. I have like the National Guard out there, police, sheriff's departments. They'll be out there ready to help vehicles, give people gas, change their tire. It is quite a process when it comes to a serious evacuation. And it's always good to get out before that happens. Because you don't want to be in the middle of that, because it does take time, even with the lane reversal. I mean, just traveling a couple miles can take a while. So, to conclude with the vehicle part, hurricane preparedness, it's all about preparation. Prior preparation is so important for your vehicle. You don't want to have your vehicle shit out on you in the middle of a disaster. That is the absolute worst thing. Keep your vehicle maintained, keep everything topped off, and you'll be good to go.